I would rather die with her than live like you.
Hello survivors and welcome to Survivors Guild, part of the Mutant Fam Horror Consortium, a community of like-minded individuals creating content and building relationships by and for fans of the drive-in. Today we are taking a look at the 2020 Killer Shark flick and third entry into the Deep Blue Sea franchise. But first, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now I hope you like 3 years of global warming research sinking to the bottom of the ocean, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Deep Blue Sea 3, written by Dirk Blackman and directed by John Pogue, starring Tanya Raymond, Nathaniel Bazalik, Emerson Brooks, Bren Foster, Rihanna Oy, and Alex Batt. Deep Blue Sea 3 is about a small group of climate change scientists studying its effects on the man-made island of Little Happy, until a ship of mercenaries shows up tracking 3 deadly bull sharks that have found their way into the ecosystem. We open up to 3 bothersome bull sharks tearing their way through the ocean on their way to the plentiful feeding ground, the ecosystem around the once populous island of Little Happy. We get introduced to Dr. Emma Collins, who's recording a vlog, and she very concisely tells us everything we need to know about the island. She's been here for 3 years, and it's been largely abandoned, aside from 2 of the 800 original occupants. We then get introduced to Shaw, who is acting as her cameraman while on the dive, where she explains more about Little Happy and the effects climate change has had on this ecosystem, including the sharks.
Carbon emissions are absorbed by the ocean, more and more every year, resulting in warmer water temperatures, rising sea levels, food source loss, ocean acidification, and species extinction.
We then get introduced to Sally, a female great white shark that Dr. Collins has been studying.
Back off, Shaw!
Who's a little too curious for Shaw's comfort, and a little too aggressive for Dr. Collins' comfort when she slams her into the reef behind her.
Don't try this at home.
Unfortunately, this leaves a gash in Emma's arm. Big mistake, idiots. Sharks love blood. And the 2 must quickly swim back to Little Happy before the sharks realize that they love humans. When they get back to the island, we learn a little bit more about them, as Shaw used to work for Emma's dad, doing similar research, and now Dr. Emma Collins is continuing in her dad's footsteps. We then cut over to the ship Thasos, who have caught Bella, who died between this movie and the last when she got caught in fishing nets. We then get introduced to Dr. Richard Lowell and Lucas, who have been tracking Bella and her 3 remaining, now grown pups. But now with Bella dead, they only have a rough idea of where those pups are headed.
Bella was a good mother. She was taking her kids to the best all-you-can-eat buffet in town.
Cut back over to the island, where we get introduced to Spinnaker, the tech of the island, and Mia, who is a summer student studying under Dr. Collins, and working towards entering a PhD program.
I still can't find him.
Who? Nemo.
She is working closely with Dr. Collins to study the declining population of great whites in the area. We then get introduced to the last 2 natives of the island, Nandi and Bahari, who are contemplating leaving the island, but Bahari is avoiding the conversation. Cut to later that night when Bahari and Nandi, who are hosting a dinner with the researchers, and we learn even more about them. Spin is a paleo vegan with a thing for Mia. Dr. Collins is only friendly when she's drinking or getting attacked by sharks. And Mia is Japanese. The next morning, the community's routine comes to a halt when they see a large ship approaching. When it docks, we find out that Richard and Dr. Collins went to grad school together and used to be a thing.
Hey, how you doing?
Together.
Emma introduces Richard and Lucas to everyone, and the men explain what has brought them to the island, and without detail explain that the bulls hunt in a pack, leaving out pertinent information.
Where they hunted in a pack.
That's not possible.
The group finds this situation puzzling,
I find this really hard to believe.
and Shaw doesn't trust the dudes.
I guess that's goodbye and good luck?
We then learn from Richard that human beings have been the enemy all along.
No sign of humanity around? I mean, who can blame you? Look what we've done.
Which we'll get a lot of in this movie. Richard brings Dr. Collins aboard the Thasos and explains who he is working for, and then asks her to stay out of the water. A little later, this group of impressive adult human male specimens gets ready for their dive, and when they go exploring, Emma also dives to set up more sensors for their Trident system. But when Dr. Collins heads towards the next blind spot to place a sensor, she happens upon a shark graveyard. Ugh. No wonder that was a blind spot. Nobody wants to see that. And while Dr. Collins makes us question her ability to math.
We've got 2 large great whites down here. Fresh kills.
She gets jump scared by Richard, who makes us question his ability to form an underwater sentence. What was that? Mia warns them about a large bull shark headed towards one of the men. The team attempt to warn Brown, who was supposed to dive deeper than everyone else, but he wasn't listening because he was busy chumming the waters. Landing Brown is our first deposit in our meat bank. Back on dry land, Dr. Collins questions Richard about how and why a bull shark would and could kill great whites, because no one gives 2 craps about Brown. And Richard goes to his go-to excuse.
My theory is that they're adapting to climate change faster than the whites, which is making them highly aggressive towards everything.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change.
But when Dr. Collins calls him out on it, he resorts to the old, "I just lost a man down there" trick.
I was hired to perform a neurological evaluation.
So Genetics can make money off them?
Oh, Emma, I just lost a man down there.
The group plans for another dive, this time realizing they should chum the waters with seal guts instead of man guts. Shaw pushes back on Emma about actually helping these guys, and Emma doubles down on her math.
We just lost a human being. And at least 2 mature great whites. We can't afford to lose any more.
Come on, Emma, there were 3 dead great whites, and technically you only lost half a man down there. How did you graduate? We learn that Shaw doesn't trust Richard, and deep down neither does Emma, so she tasks Spin with doing some search history on Bella's tracker to see if what they've been told was the truth. Just then, Richard and Lucas drop by to let them know that they plan on using a drone to chum the waters rather than their friend, and use the Trident system the researchers have set up to watch for the bulls, but also to let them know that they'd prefer to take the sharks alive, using a tranquilizer, but also have explosive rounds for if they don't want to take them alive. Emma lets them know that the explosives could bring down what's left of the island, and Lucas reassures her that his men don't miss. The excellent examples of the human male physique, -1, prepare for the next dive. I might be wrong, but maybe they shouldn't swim directly into that chum. But who the hell am I? And while the seal blood turns the sharks into a frenzy, Mia and Dr. Collins look on from the Trident mapping system, noticing that Sally is sticking to the sea floor, rather than seeing what all the chum is about. And then their talk devolves into being about boys. Meanwhile, Spin is finishing up his hacking mission and found out that the boys have been less than honest about where these sharks came from. Cut back over to Dr. Collins and Mia, who have noticed that a large bull has entered the arena. They give warning to Richard and his crew before Dr. Collins and Shaw head out to look over the cove, where Richard happens to be and is in close proximity to the bull. Unfortunately, when the bull dodges Richard's trank, and Dr. Collins isn't quite fast enough, the bull charged directly into Richard, but it passes out before it can complete the deposit. Lucas swims over and helps Dr. Collins release Richard from the jaws of the beast and helps bring him to the surface. And Richard gives Lucas the orders to get the sleeping bull shark onto the Thasos.
Get it sedated.
And then Dr. Collins tends to his wounds. We cut over to Bahari, who is out fishing when his line snags on something, so he dives in to free it. But it turns out it was snagged on a bull shark, and Bahari gets deposited into our meat bank at number 2. Which the group discovers later when they drag in Bahari's boat, and discover the shark didn't leave them empty-handed. After a little bit of mourning, the group takes a load off, and Dr. Collins asks Spin about the mission she sent him on. He lets them know the plot from Deep Blue Sea 2, explaining that that's where these bull sharks came from, so Dr. Collins goes to Richard and Collins him out on his bull shark story. But while she grills him about what the sharks really are, they get interrupted when the remaining 2 bulls start bashing the boat to get their brother back.
That window's not gonna last much longer.
But Richard comes up with a plan and aims an explosive charge at the shackled shark, and as soon as the 2 bulls see their brother in danger, they leave, which raises some eyebrows from those who witnessed it.
What just happened?
Richard takes Dr. Collins back into his lab and does some splaining, and Richard ties the trilogy together.
It didn't start with Aquilos. That was second-gen work. It started with research on Makos, trying to acquire proteins to treat Alzheimer's.
We find out that the events of Deep Blue Sea 1 were not made common knowledge, and that Carl Durant had taken the research gained from the events of the first film, somehow despite it being destroyed, and was trying to use it towards the advancement of humankind by making us smarter instead of the sharks. He also tells us that Genotics Labs has bought the patents on both drugs, the smart drug and the Alzheimer's one, and now has a vested interest in tracking down the 3 remaining of Bella's pups. He also explains that the pups imprinted themselves to Bella's tracker's frequency. Unfortunately, Lucas is eavesdropping, like a damn shark or something, while Richard drops some knowledge on us, letting us know that this connection the sharks have with the tracker is something he hopes to use on humans to make them care, I guess? Which is something Dr. Collins could use, because apparently she doesn't. A little later, Lucas shows up to talk to Richard and let him know that he shouldn't have let Dr. Collins know all that, and, like Dr. Collins, is pretty pissed that they turned a buddy of his into chum when Richard had their mom, the tracker, to lure the sharks in the first place, leaving us to play a game of who's the real enemy here. Climate change, that's who. Cut back over to our protagonist group, who is planning on reporting the situation to the authorities, but Spin lets us know that the internet is down. Wait, this place had internet? And while Dr. Collins goes to investigate the downed internet, the group use their drone to investigate Lucas's men, who are going on another dive. And while they discover that Lucas's team is placing a large mine to blow up the sharks and the island, Dr. Collins discovers that their internet line has been severed. The group reconvene to discuss what their next steps will be.
If those 2 juvie bulls start making babies...
We're talking Seamageddon.
Dr. Collins decides to Collins Richard out on it, but the mine wasn't his idea and he didn't even know about it. Lucas then lets us know that the real enemy wasn't climate change, it was man all along.
Well, you really think that they sent us here to develop drugs for slow kids?
And probably climate change. And that Lucas was hired by Genotics to basically destroy the evidence. Lucas then drops a conspiracy truth bomb on us.
Because the people who control everything now, man, they will pay anything so their kids can control everything when all this starts to turn to shit.
He's right, you know. He then starts using his Nerf gun to take out the witnesses. Damn, those must be mega darts. Lucas, who is not afraid to hit a girl, shows us that by comparison, Richard is not quite as evil as him. Unfortunately, all this ruckus has drawn the attention of the bull sharks, making the situation even more complicated as the island of Little Happy begins to crumble, with the threat of both the sharks and the mine still looming. Shaw attempts to help Spin and Mia, who are stuck in a sinking building, while Dr. Collins gets ready to retrieve the mine, so Shaw can disarm it. Back on the Thasos, Lucas sends Shill to take out Emma, and then he and Richard have a heart-to-heart. Lucas gives Richard an ultimatum.
You have a choice to make, boss. Stay on the ship and collect your check, or you can join your grad school crush.
Which is a no-brainer to Richard.
I would rather die with her than live like you.
Who decides to dive right into our meat bank at deposit number 3. Dr. Collins heads off to head off the mine, while Lucas and Earls head off to fistfight Shaw, while Spin heads out only to be forced back when a bull shark heads in. Spin and Mia head up to get away from the uninvited bull shark, and while Shaw gets his ass beat by Lucas, Spin gets his ass eat by bull shark after declaring his love for Mia.
That was close.
Dragging Spin into our meat bank at deposit number 4. Meanwhile, Lucas uses his ultimate finishing move, Earls, to finish Shaw. But when Shaw gets his second breath and an upper hand, and one of the bulls shows up to watch the fight, Shaw lifts Earls straight into our meat bank at deposit number 5. Over in the nursery, Dr. Collins finds the mine and retrieves the tracker from it, while Mia tries not to die in a sinking building. While in the process of trying to pry the mine off the giant magnet, Dr. Collins is surprised by Shill, who is then surprised by Sally and then deposited into our meat bank at deposit number 6. Dr. Collins then turns her attention back to the mine and finally gets it off the plate, only to be cornered by the 2 remaining bulls. But conveniently, these bulls know what a mine is, and Dr. Collins uses it to force them to retreat. Nandi and Shaw toss what remains of Earls into the cove as a distraction to get the sharks away from Emma. It's super effective. While Lucas pulls an anchor and sets sail away from Little Happy to get far enough away to safely detonate the mine, Dr. Collins surfaces Sand's mine, and the 3 of them look on while Lucas prepares to detonate it.
Little happy? Me big unhappy.
But as it turns out, Dr. Collins placed the mine on the Thasos, causing it to sink when Lucas detonates the mine, releasing the bull's brother into the deep blue sea. 3. The group decides that they must destroy the 3 sharks to finish this series once and for all. They attach Bella's tracker to the drone in order to lure the sharks close enough to use their remaining exploding rounds to blow these sharks to Kingdom Chum. But when Dr. Collins drives the drone right into a fishing net, the sharks lose interest and Shaw jumps in to free the device. Shaw cuts the drone free, but not before getting the attention of 2 of the bulls, and when they come in for the kill, Shaw brings down the explosive rounds, turning them into sushi and him into deposit number 7 in our meat bank. But there is no time for crying over spilt Shaw now. We've got a Lucas that refuses to die.
Me big unhappy.
Oh, Andy's seen better days. And when he starts drowning Dr. Collins, Nandi distracts him long enough for Emma to surprise him and stab him where a heart would be if he had one. Luckily, there was something vital in there, and Lucas drops dead into our meat bank at deposit number 8. Emma remembers the last shark and sets out to finish what she started. She dives into the water and lures the beast into the trash compactor. She hits the button to begin the compacting process and begins crushing the shark while fending it off. Before the shark finally gives into the pressure. Ew. Cut to a little later, Nandi and Emma have boarded their boat and are heading towards the mainland when they pull up to a cabinet floating in the ocean. And it turns out to be full of Mia. They bring her aboard and the 3 of them sail directly into the credits, and the movie ends. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your chances of surviving this movie. Starting off our meat bank deposits, we have Brown, dying off screen but dragging his guts on screen at deposit number 1. Followed by Bahari, also dying off screen, but giving us his hand on screen at deposit number 2. We then get Richard diving into our meat bank at number 3, followed by Spin getting dragged in at deposit number 4, and then Earls getting finished into deposit number 5, along with Shill devoured in at number 6, Shaw blowing his way into our meat bank at deposit number 7, and of course our final deposit, Lucas, who drops into our meat bank at the medium rare deposit of number 8. Now let's take a look at our survivors. We've got the only 3 women in this movie, Dr. Emma Collins, Mia, and Nandi. So that means that out of a total of 11 characters, only 3 survived, giving you a 27.3% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how would these bull sharks make you regret having a Y chromosome? Let me know in the comments below. And conversely, if you have 2 X chromosomes, how would you avoid being killed by these GMO bull sharks? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, stay a while, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And, as always guys, thanks, and don't die.
Hello, internet fans. Do you want to learn about horror movies that you never knew existed? Do you miss the video store, but not the late fees? Then join us at 3B Video, where we talk about stuff like this, and this, and this. If you'll excuse me, I've got some videotapes to return. You like Huey Lewis in the news?